to Wembley way. With east-toe grip we fight. Now we rise, our heads held high, proudly wearing the red and white.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏 Rovers Forever members. It's high speed towards the business end of the season as 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏 gear up for a massive adventure of a lifetime away at Wigan Warriors, a clash that could decide who gets their hands on this year's League Leaders' Shield. Will it be Viva La Vida for the Robins, or will Wigan leave us lost? We'll, of course, talk about the Robins' paradise of a performance in their comprehensive victory over Castleford Tigers, bring you all the latest squad news, and, of course, answer your questions in question time. This week, I'm joined, as always, by the talkative Robin Pod regulars, Bazza Kingston and James Purling, who are ready to fix you with all their insight and opinion. Plus, Steve Tilley's back to rewind the years with a sky full of stars, Robins revisited. So sit back, don't panic, and get ready, because the Robin Pod is once again about to light up the world. Welcome, James and Bazza, to this week's Robin Pod Weekly.
Yeah, cheers, Johno. That was some entrance. Was that?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, let's start off with that victory over Castleford. Of course, people who were at the game will have seen off-field transformations, the fact that Craven Street had been moved. We started to see the footprint of the Coldplay stage being landed. Before we kick off with the game, James, what did you make of the new Craven Street? Because actually I thought it was a good addition. I think it was good for the time of year, but you've got to remember as well, February, March, it's probably not the best time to do it there, but it seems to be well received by a lot of the Robin supporters.
Yeah, we didn't actually go to it, but Jan went in it, and she said it was really good because she sits in the north stand, so she doesn't normally go in Craven Street. But she said, yeah, it seemed the lot seemed a lot more space. Could sit on the grass, which is quite nice. Obviously, with it being pleasant, like you say, you wouldn't really do that in February. But yeah, I just walking past it. It just seems to be a lot more space in there. I thought potentially, and if they are going to develop that south end of the stadium, that they might want to be looking at doing that, putting it there full time.
Yeah, of course, there's big developments going on at Craven Park in terms of developments around the back of the East Stand and the retailers that are coming in. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. Bazza, when we looked at the Castleford game and we've looked at how Castleford have done so far this season, it was a game that most Robin supporters would have expected 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏 to win. I think that's a fair judgment. And what was really interesting about the game, Bazza, was how much people seemed to almost tolerate the game with one eye towards Wigan. It was almost get this one out the way because we know there's something more important, something more bigger coming. I think the players, they played a game like that as well. I don't know what you think, Bazza.
Yeah, I felt the atmosphere and the whole vibe about the place didn't feel 100% like it has been now. I thought it had been bouncing a bit, but there was quite a bit of change going on. We've been at home for quite some time, so I don't know. I thought the place had been rocking, but it was it did seem a little bit subdued at times. And with the players, that again, it just felt like there was coasting. It was a strange one, and again, maybe things just felt a little bit weird with not looking across to the south stand, Craven Street not there. It's so maybe that has a part to play because that always has like a festival feel about it with the band playing and whatnot. So I don't know, it did feel a little strange.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot of synergy, James, between the two clubs. I mean, when you look at who was in charge of the side, former players, future players. You had Tom O'Mone, of course. We know he's going to be a Robin in 2026. We had former Hull Kingston Rovers head coach Chris Chester. He was in charge of the side. Scott Morrell running on from the touchline. Then, of course, we had former players Sam Wood, Louis Senior, George Lawler, Louis Mustafa. It was like home from home for certain people. And if anyone's watched the YouTube video, Robin's on the inside, they'll see Paul Lakin talking to Chris Chester. They'll see, great synergy between some of the former people. But as much as it was familiar territory for Castleford, they did make a fist of it. But ultimately, and this is what I mentioned to my mate Carl will go with. We walked away from beating Castleford 36 points to 6, almost disappointed, almost undervaluing the result. You only have to rewind 4 years ago, and what a result that would have been. And I think that's great testament to how the players have propelled us, but also as supporters now. Our expectations are a little bit higher. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, James.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, obviously we played them in round 1 as well and won it on golden point. But like I say, overall, the game was a really horrible game. You just, like, as I said, the atmosphere was really weird. It was almost like just willing the players not to get injured. I think I think for me that was the sort of the main thing. Thinking, could be HI away from somebody key being out for next week, but the game was still needed to be won. I think for me, if you looked at it, I don't think Castleford really offered anything going forward. I think Rovers had them very much where they wanted to. Defensively, I thought we were very solid. Just really, I think they only came out of their 20. They didn't have that half twice. I think one for a break down the right hand side, and when they got their try. But other than that, I think we had them well under control. And then when we needed to, I think we just upped the pace a bit, and then just blew them away in that start of the second half.
Yeah, and Bazza, we knew that of course Tyrone Way won't be playing. We didn't expect to be missing Jared War-Hargreaves, though, did we? And that was probably a big surprise for a lot of people rocking up at Craven Park on Saturday to see Eric Dorrough on the bench and no JWH.
Yeah, well, again, I didn't expect Jared to be out, but with respect to Jared, it shows how far we've come, because 3-4 years ago, us as Rovers fans, we lose a big name signing like Jared down for a week. We go into meltdown, but I think now we're quite comfortable when we bring the likes of Jack Brown in, and we get a bit excited about Dorrough and what he has to offer. So again, yeah, it was a bit of a surprise with him being out, but I won't worried. Like, when we lose a player now, I'm kind of like getting around that next man up mentality and trusting them to do a job, and it's literally been the story for us all year. When someone's had to step up, they really have done a job. And again, I think that stint for Dorrough on Saturday, it did him well, because I don't think he made an error. It was outstanding for me. He made a good impact.
Yeah, and you're right. Of course, there was then the enforced changes with Arthur Moore coming to the halves, Jack Broadbent going to full back. We saw then James Batchelor going to the centres, which then led to Dean Hadley partnering Reece Martin in the second row. And then it was a welcome return for Jai Whitbread, not into the second row position that we'd been accustomed to seeing over the last few weeks. He went into the prop position. And it's almost, I don't know, James, Jai Whitbread seems to be getting moulded into a little, it's very hard to compare, but that Dean Hadley role now, where he's able to fulfill a couple of positions, but do it really well. Because prior to him starting at prop on Saturday against Castleford, he'd been the second row for a good 4 or 5 weeks, I think.
Yeah, and didn't he have a stint at loose forward when Minchello was rested as well? So I think you're right. I think if you look at him and Dino, both versatile, and I think whatever position they get slotted into and come into the team to do, I think they do do it very effective. I thought also well from Whitbread's point of view. I thought it's quite pleasing that he didn't actually make an error. He's usually solid for at least one error in a game, but I think he was error free on Saturday, which is great. So I think it just gives another headache to Peters, doesn't it? About sort of who you're going to start with, who you're going to sort of play, but then also by the same token, you've got some quality covered up if you need to.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Bazza, the big talk around where I was on the East Stand was about the fact that Castleford had allowed Rowan Milnes to come to the Robins, knowing full well that he can't play, yet he will be involved in training. He's probably not got a future at Castleford. So, the old saying about loose lips sink ships, Rowan Milnes, I'm guessing won't be holding anything back in terms of what Castleford may offer. And the talk was, it just seemed such a bizarre time because Castleford could have easily gone, you know what, you can have Rowan Milnes after the Castleford game. But the fact that they allowed him to come a week before just seemed really odd because Willie Peters talked to me prior to the Castleford game about how Rowan Milnes is coming to help the Robins train as well and be that extra halfback on the opposition side when they're doing the captain's run and they're doing the unopposed plays. And that's what I mean. The talk was, it just seemed a bit strange from a Castleford point of view to allow such a player to come in and be involved in the off-field stuff. Well,
if you look at it as a whole, it was just a weird situation all around. Like Rowan Milnes bringing a Super League player. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't rate him as highly as others, but to bring him in to use it in a training facility, it was. I was left scratching my head with that one. Whether there's plans for him further down the track or not, I'm not sure. Whether he's got utility value over Danny Richardson at the moment, because if we need him, he can come in. He's not going to be Tyrone, he's not going to be Mikey, he's not going to be out startling, but he'll be steady. I mean, it was only a couple of years ago we had our heads in our hands when we'd lost Mikey and coming for that Salford game in the Challenge Cup, and he absolutely bossed that game. So he has got that game in his locker. So it's a gamble. Whether it pays off or not, we don't know. Whether we see him pull on the Rovers jersey, all I'll know is everything Willie Peters has done this year has turned to gold. Whether it's been signings, I think one thing Willie Peters does need commending on this year is the way he's managed the players with the rotation, giving players big minutes, reducing minutes to some players. I think he's just got the squad cohesion absolutely perfectly, and not burning them out, which is massive. I mean, I don't know if you watch Elliot Minchella's pre-match today. Like, he really wanted to play in Catalan, but the decision was out of his hands, and that's Willie Peters nursing his boys, because it's a long old slog, and these boys have done some massive minutes and won some crucial games. So he's for me, with signing Rowan Milnes, are we to say it's a bad move, because there's obviously method in his madness there.
Oh, Bazza, I'm in full. I think it's it's very shrewd bringing someone back into the camp who's obviously familiar with the surroundings. Yeah, some of the players have moved on, some of the players have changed, but the core of the group's still there. And James, I know he was signed initially on a 2-week loan deal. I can't see anything other than Rowan Milnes remaining with us until the end of the season right now.
No, I can't. I think particularly obviously as Danny Richardson's gone to York for the rest of the season, and he's still, so obviously he's out with the injury at the moment. But yeah, I think it's a very shrewd move as well. I think you've got a guy there who knows the club, knows the ground, knows a lot of the back, team, etc. And I think people say, they don't rate him. I actually rated him as he's a solid. For me, he's a solid stand-in. He's got bags of experience. I don't think he's ever, he's never been more than he's that Salford game, like you mentioned, he sort of bossed it, and then, but other than that, he's about an average. He's a good solid average halfback who you'd bring in and he'd do a job for you. So I think it's fine. I think I've no problem with it at all. I think it's good shrewd move and good cover. in case anything happens to further down the line to Tyrone or Mikey.
Yeah, he's definitely the Trojan horse for the game against Castleford. I mean, 16-6 at half-time, Bazza. The try just before half-time from Jez Litton obviously made the scoreline at half-time, a bit better than most Rovers fans would have hoped for after witnessing that first half performance, because it was, like we've already said, Bazza, it was flat, wasn't it? It wasn't very dynamic. The play seems to be going through the motions. Castleford did a good spoiler job without ever looking like that was going to really challenge us. At the same time, Rovers couldn't really come up with some of these magic plays. But I think, like Willie Peters alluded to in the post-game press conference, some of the games is sometimes just sticking in there, just making sure you go through the process, you keep defending. Eventually, your time will come, whether it's at the start of the game or whether it's at the back end. And that's what this Robin side is really good at doing, is just staying in the game, making sure that the opposition don't get a lead, don't get a foothold in the game. And ultimately, we did then kick on in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, at half-time, I wasn't worried at all. In fact, I was a bit gutted about the 𝗪𝗓𝗄𝗏 try, Could Broadbent have done better? Who knows? But Broadbent more than made up for it with setting up 3 tries. Was it 3? But going into the second half, it was comfortable. But again, there was no buzz about the place. It felt like you've just said, going through the motions, and I think we've been used to seeing champagne rugby, and I think that game we kind of got, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to Castleford, but it kind of felt like we got dragged down to their level, and we ended up in a bit of a grind with them going set for set. But to be fair, with Rovers, we will do that. We'll quite happily go set for set, and we'll suffocate any team, and we'll keep them pinned back, and we will take our chances when they come, whether, like you just said, whether it's in the 10th minute, the 7th minute, 70th minute, we'll just keep battling away. There was no flashy. There was a lot of one-up rugby, but again, we got the job done.
Yeah, I tell you what, Bazza mentioned it, James, and it's a good point to bring up about the 𝗪𝗓𝗄𝗏 try, because, of course, we saw Jack Broadbent go to full-back in light of Artemore, then going into the halves. Batchelor, of course, then went to the centres. Do you know what? For me, Broadbent, I called it a few weeks ago. He's been one of my players of the season, if not the player of the season, the way he's fitted in. What I've noticed, though, is that when he goes to the full-back position, he does come up with the odd error. What you don't see when he's in the centre, he looks a lot more comfortable at centre in terms of his defensive play, his positioning, his attacking play. When he's exposed at fullback, he does come up with the odd knock-on. That 𝗪𝗏𝗄𝗏 try could have been diffused, bouncing the ball, and that's where just sometimes we are a little bit exposed. But at the same time, I think he was our top meter maker. He made 220 plus meters. He had the biggest average gain out of any player on the. So what he does give you is fantastic, but it's just them one-offs, isn't it? That can cost you the game in the big games.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It was actually, for me, I was thinking about it the other day as well. For me, he probably would be the player of the year at the moment. And I think because he's sort of set such high standards, when he does have the occasional lapse, it becomes more noticeable. I agree. I think he's much better and looks more comfortable at centre. It does also seem, I think, when he's at full-back, when there's a high ball coming through, he sometimes lets it bounce fairly often, and obviously we know that can be suicidal. But I think he's got away with it most times. But it only takes the odd bounce to go back into the opposition players, and then you concede a try. But yeah, it'd be interesting what happens on Friday night. I know we'll come on to that, and so where Peters ends up playing him. But I think it's just the standards is set that we're actually saying the errors are so rare that they're noticeable, and it's he has been absolutely superb this season, and the fact that when we're talking about Ash's squad at the end of the season, some people are talking about well, Broadbent should be on the shout, on the basis of his form, and you got that squad should be being picked on form. He's in form. Yeah, let's get him into discussion about that, but that's for another day.
Yeah, Bazza, another hat-trick for 𝗀𝗲𝗁𝗂𝗁. He's proven himself to be an absolute expert finisher. That hat-trick actually put him into the top 5 try scorers in Super League right now. And he joins Mikey Lewis and Tom Davis. Mikey Lewis on 19 tries, 𝗀𝗲𝗁𝗂𝗁 now 17, Tom Davis on 15, all in the top 5 try scorers. Kingston Rovers are, of course, the top try scorers in Super League, you know, the scores we've made. But Berge, you see, he's proven himself to be an absolute expert finisher at the moment.
It's been incredible. I mean, when he was at Salford, it was nowhere near as prolific as what he has been for us. I think he scored something like 38 tries in 43 games, something stupid like that. Don't quote me on that stat, but again, when we first signed him, I looked at his try scoring record at Salford and I thought he's never been the same place since he's left Wigan. So I was a bit on the fence when we got him, especially when 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏 left Salford. But again, he's come in, he's been phenomenal. He'll finish from anywhere. But even, I think, how old is he? 31, 32? He's got a yard of pace on him as well. And it does make me nervous the way he plucks the ball out the sky sometimes. Like, I don't know how he does it, but yeah, what a guy, what a signing, what a character as well. All around, mate. He's definitely been one of the best signings we've made over the last 10, 15 years, undoubtedly.
Yeah, and James, what you'd say is, as good as 𝗀𝗲𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗂 is at finishing tries, he's had some tremendous service.
He has, yeah. Can't fault that, but still, they still need finishing. And I think also, you know, sometimes the way you just catch the ball doesn't sort of put your heart in your mouth. But I think also on Saturday, I think he showed he's got some, you know, sort of defensive steel. You know, the way he sort of clobbered 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗏𝗂. Yeah. Actually laid it, you know, absolutely mullered him, which is actually quite pleasant to see, having the way 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗏𝗃 had sort of laid out Mikey. But yeah, I think again that's probably a bit an area of his game that we don't probably appreciate as much. I think he has put a few good hits in over the season. But yeah, totally agree with Bazza. He's probably been one of the best signings we've had for a number of years, just purely in terms of his finishing.
Absolutely fantastic winger. And the one question mark I had about whether he would be in the England side for the Ashes was his probably defensive efforts. You know, it's all well and good having a great finisher, but you know, at top level elite international rugby league, you've got to have a full all-round game. And we've seen Joe come up with some sloppy plays at time, but then, like you said, James, you know, it's great to see him making them defensive efforts. And he's going to be under the pump on Friday night when we take on Wigan. He's going to be absolutely tested. But he's an absolutely great addition. He's actually top of Super League for clean breaks, which probably most people won't be surprised about, because the amount of times he gets away from the line, just the sheer willingness of him to run onto that ball at pace creates that gap. And there's nothing better than seeing 𝗀𝗲𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗃 in full flight, because once he's gone, it's very, very hard to catch him. And it's interesting as well with the Robins, because with the top try scorers, like I've already mentioned, with the top meter makers, we've made the most tackle busts and we've made the most clean breaks as a side. And that's, to me, that shows our attacking flair, the way that we play rugby, Bazza. We're all about trying to break that line, hitting the gaps at the right time, and the attacking rugby league that we play, which why I want to bring it back to that Castleford game, is that we scored 36 points. And, you know, we scored 36 points against, albeit a Castleford side that's struggling at the foot of Super League, or, you know, but years gone by, that result would not have happened. We'd have been absolutely cock-a-hoop to walk away with a result like that. So, like we said earlier, the standards that are now being set for the Robins, by us as supporters, but by them as players, just shows you how far we have come. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. Again, and all these stats I just reeled off is absolutely incredible. But all them stats, mate, they're all based off our defence, because again, we're still under 10 points per game on average, and that it's that defence what creates them stats, mate. Because the way we bully teams now and smother them, and tire him out. That's what's freeing us up to make them breaks with Mikey. But we've got strike all over the park, you know, on both wings, in our centres with 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗃, 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 and all can bust the line, mate. So we've got strike everywhere. Yeah, it is uncharted territory, but what I am a bit worried about, like you say, walking away from that ground, 36 points to 6, not feeling like I would 5 years ago, like we just won a cup final, you know, we've just absolutely battered a Cast team, because 5 years ago, mate, every one of us would be buzzing, but to walk away feeling, I don't know, a bit subdued as such. I was happy with the win, but I don't know, it just, I just don't want us to become that entitled side, if that makes sense, where we feel entitled to put like 50, 60 on a lower side, because that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's a great point, Bazza. It's great. We can't get complacent around that either. James, no. Jared Wara-Hargreaves, no problem, because Ewubinmi steps into the side, and he's a player that many Robins supporters have been calling for to see featuring the first team. He came in, had some bulldozing runs.
Yeah, certainly gets the crowd excited, doesn't he, when he comes on? I think, you know, as Bazza said earlier, sort of, he seems to cut the errors out that I think we saw a lot of in his first few games with the club. I mean, I don't know if it's an illusion or not, but he just seems to have got bigger as well. I think it's probably a big unit anyway, but having been out the side for a few weeks and over at Bradford, he just seems to have come back, you know, bulked up even more, which is obviously going to stand him in good stead. And I think it'd be great to see him get a longer run out in the team. Whether he's again plays this Friday night, I don't know. But again, it's another one that you can feel, if you need to, you know, going to come in, he's going to do a job, and he's going to cause some disruption with the opposition. It could be a big handful for them to contain.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned the game on Friday against Wigan. Before we discuss that, let's bring in Steve Till for Robins Revisited. Steve, join us once again for Robins Revisited. Of course, we're no stranger to playing Wigan over the last few years in big games. And of course, we've faced them many times in historic occasions. Where are you going to take us back to this week?
Well, I'm going to take you back to 1987, but first I'm going to concentrate on Wigan that year, because that was the year that Maurice Lindsay, who was the boss of the owner of Wigan at the time, he came up with an idea to take on the Australian champions for the World Club Championship, the first ever World Club Championship. And they were playing Manly. And at the time, I lived in Bradford. And me and a couple of mates said, let's go over and see this Wigan Manly match. It was the opportunity that we had very few opportunities to see the Australians in the flesh, and especially the club side. So we went over to Wigan. 36,894 other people went. It was a packed house at the old Central Park. I remember going for a drink in Billy Boston's pub across the way, the Griffin Arms, and it was an absolute. I think if I chose the best match I've ever been to for atmosphere and everything that didn't involve Rovers, it would have to be that game. There was fireworks off the field, but by God, there was some fireworks on the field as well. It was a torrid affair. The referee, John Holdsworth, he spent half his time separating the players. And in that game, a high tackle was one that missed. You know, everything. I mean, nowadays, there wouldn't be a player left on the pitch. But Wigan won that game through 4 David Stevenson goals. They won the game 8-2. Michael O'Connor, the former Australian century, kicked 1 goal for Manly. And it was a game where Ronnie Gibbs, who later came to play for Castleford, he got sent off. Brian Case and Cliff Lyons, Brian Case of Wigan, Cliff Lyons of Manly got sin-binned. And there was a surprise man of the match. It was none other than Shaun Wane, the current England manager. So that was in the October of 1987. But jump forward, jump on the same season, and let's go to March, 23rd of March, in fact, in 1988, and Wigan were the visitors to Craven Park, and there wasn't such a crowd. It was 4,148 was the crowd then. Rovers were in about 9th position, and Wigan were in 6th. And it was a Rovers team that included Peter Mortimer, who was the brother of Chris and Steve Mortimer, the lesser-known brother. He was the poet. Those two became internationals. But he played centre for us alongside Mike Fletcher. There was Gary Clark, George Fairbairn, Dave Version. And we had a kid called Ross Taylor in New Zealand, a prop forward. He was a good lad. Gordon Smith played 𝗀𝗂𝗱𝗏. But they took on a Wigan team that was pretty good themselves, and almost at least 8 of those players that played in the World Cup final played against Rovers that day, included Ellery Hanley, Case, Shaun Wane, Dean Bell, the 2 Iro brothers, and Hampson. It was a Wednesday night. It was a cold March Wednesday night, and I had a friend with me staying from Australia, and I don't think he's ever been so cold. Anyway, went to the match, and lo and behold, Rovers won, but they didn't just win. They kept Wigan out. Wigan didn't score a point. The match finished 8-0 to Rovers, and it was a personal success for Mike Fletcher, who scored the game's only try and kicked 2 goals. But I always remember the last 20 minutes of the game, Wigan threw everything but the kitchen sink of Rovers. So Wigan was scoreless, and it'd been a few years before that Wigan finished scoreless, and I believe it was a couple of years later when Leeds beat them 18 and 19-0. That was the next time they were nilled. So it was a tremendous achievement by Rovers. We were, in a way, fighting relegation as we did. It was just after the 86 Cup final, a couple of years later. We were struggling at times, but we managed to defeat the World Club champions, and we managed to nil them. Great day.
Johno.
Thank you to everyone who's just listening to Robin's Revisited. Apologies for the poor sound quality. I didn't realise at the time how bad it was. But if you've listened to it, great memories from Steve Till. Bazza, the Robin's take on Wigan next. Before we talk about the Wigan game, of course, the build-up to the game has been disrupted, not least by the fact that one of the world's biggest bands is due to play at Craven Park next Monday and Tuesday, which has meant the Robins have had to relocate their training to Bishop Burton College. Now, before we talk about the game, do you think that could play a factor in the build-up, the fact that they've had to change the settings? Because we're all creatures of comfort, aren't we? And people who listen to this, not watching on YouTube, will realise that Bazza is definitely a creature of comfort as he sits in his luxury penthouse lorry that we've all become accustomed to on YouTube. But it's on a serious note, Bazza, familiar surroundings help us get on and do our job, don't they? So when you sometimes remove yourself from that, do you think it'll be a feature?
Nah, I don't think the club will make too big a deal of it. And these guys are professionals. I think I've said it before. We've been to loads of different training camps. We have obviously pre-season in Tenerife. We did captains in York. We trained in Wembley. So we are used to a change of scenery. And these boys, they're best mates, aren't they? So you stick these best mates anywhere, they're gonna have a laugh, they're gonna train hard, they're gonna work hard, and they're gonna enjoy doing it no matter where they are. So I don't see it being an issue. I get the creature comforts, your routine. I mean, some players tend to have superstitions, but overall, mate, I don't think it'll hinder our performance whatsoever. We'll still have top facilities to use to work with. So again, there'll be no issue as long as the boys are together, having a laugh, grafting hard, and enjoying themselves. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and I think James Bazza makes a great point about, do you know what, this side is so versatile in terms of, actually, I reckon as a group, as long as they're together, they could feel they could play on the moon. They could go to the Antarctic and play. But as long as they're together, it doesn't matter what is in front of them. They're such a tight-knit group of players, coaching staff, off-field staff, that actually we've gone beyond probably the question that I posed, but I thought it was an important question. But they are like so resilient, aren't they? Now they're a different piece to what we've seen before, but that's because no stones left unturned. Everything's put out there for them to enjoy and benefit from. But then also they then take advantage of it and enjoy it, and that's why probably I'm with Bazza. I don't think this is any problem whatsoever.
No, I'd either as well. As I say, the group unity there is one of the strengths that they've got, and obviously you have to realise that obviously we knew Coldplay were coming for a number of months. They've been coming. We knew what the fixtures were. So given the detail that Peters has with things, they would have planned it meticulously for when it was going to happen. And I think the other thing is, you can sort of say, they've got the creature comforts of home, but also maybe a change of scenery can freshen things up a bit as well. Sometimes just get out of that sort of not necessarily comfort zone, but just a different environment and stuff.
The excitement of being somewhere new.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that, if you're thinking then that they're going away, where they go away to play an away game and they are in different surroundings, they've actually probably done that adaptation still near the home. It's not a big thing for me at all.
Yeah, I suppose, Bazza, the one thing we didn't want or expect was a injury from one of our key players in the build-up to this game, and that's got nothing to do with the new training facilities. Obviously, it was spoke about at the start of the week about there was an unnamed player who'd suffered an injury in training. It's now become apparent it's 𝗕𝗂𝗱𝗲𝗏 who suffered an injury, not just any old injury, a fractured ankle, which is potentially season-ending for him. Now, the talk is that the timeline of his recovery could be him ready for the playoffs. And there's no doubt he's a tough cookie. You only have to see what he did in the Challenge Cup final to realise the strength of the player. But a fractured ankle is a tough injury to come back from quickly.
Yeah, it is. And I'd be very surprised if we see him pull on the Rovers jersey again, before retirement. Again, I go back to what I said earlier. It's next man up mentality. So as good a servant Mickey Mack has been to us, not only us, but as rugby league in general, I'm not too worried because, again, next man up mentality. So Bill Leyland takes centre stage. You might not be doing 40, 50 minutes. You might only be doing a 15-minute spell to give Jez a breather. But it's these types of situations what make a player. That's how Junior and Semba burst onto the scene when Willie Isa was out, and Wigan relied so heavily on them. So we've already lost Mickey Mack for a bit. Bill Leyland come in. It did a grand job. Didn't put a foot wrong. Now he's going to have to up his game because he's going up against arguably the best in the world. So I'm not too worried. I'd be gutted if we didn't see him back because it does bring a lot of toughness down the middle. But I've got a new mindset now as a KR fan, mate, and it's next man up mentality, and I trust the next man who's going to step up.
Yeah, I mean, the irony as well, James, is at the start of the week, there was an interview released, wasn't they, from 𝗕𝗂𝗱𝗏𝗏 that he'd done with, I think it was Dave Craven from the Mirror, about him. Actually, he's not been offered a coaching role at Catalan officially. So Tompkins, who's going to be the new head coach at Catalan, has had the conversation with him and said that he'd love to bring him in. But actually, there's no contract on the table. And he was talking about, well, actually, he could be playing for another. He wants to carry on. I think what's certain is, James, he's not sticking around, and he's still, he mentioned the fact that 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗂𝗧 early on this season and said, would you do another year for us? And he's quite firm about his family living in the south of France. That's where he wants to be. And he's looking at potentially next year, he could be playing semi-professional. So the irony is, he does that interview and then he goes and gets an injury like he does. And I mean, don't get me wrong, he played bust up in the Champions Cup final as well, didn't he? And I'm guessing a player like Mickey McAloran's probably been playing bust up for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, he's actually again one of those sort of shrewd signings that I think Peters has done. I think he's certainly been brought in to do a job with Hargreaves and bring that sort of solidity and big game experience that we've probably lacked to get us over the line, which clearly we did at Wembley. So I think that defensive toughness, I think will be a big miss against Wigan, because you look at their hookers. They've got Brad O'Neill and they've got Cruz Leeming, and Leeming for me is probably one of the most underrated players in Super League. But saying that, I have no qualms that Bill Leyland are going to take a step forward and fill those shoes. I think when we've seen Leyland on the field this season, he certainly looked the part. Certainly got that potential, and the fact that he's been given a 2-year extension on a contract clearly shows that Peters rates him. He'll have been certainly picking up bags from Litton and from McAlorum, and I have no qualms that he'll come in on Friday night and do a great job.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Bazza, that bad news was tempered by the fact that Mikey Lewis had come through that Castleford game unscathed. Because I'm not being funny, we didn't mention it when we talked about the Castleford game, but it was heart in mouth moments, wasn't it? When Michael Lewis was, his arms literally laying prone on the side of his body. He can hardly lift it to make the pass. Then we're told he's got to have an injection at half time to make sure he gets through the second half. Apparently, he had to then go for a scan on Monday to see where he was with that shoulder injury. Thankfully, he's coming through unscathed, because, I mean, going into the game without Tyrone May is bad enough. Mickey McAloran's proved he's a big game player, but to go into that game without Mikey Lewis as well, I'm not saying it was, that Wigan have got the result on the back of that, but our frontline players need to be in that team, and to lose someone like Mikey Lewis, who's already in the top 5 try scorers. He's second for assists. He's absolutely playing out of his skin at the moment. To lose a player of that calibre, Bazza, going into a game like this would have been absolutely horrific, I think.
Oh mate, it'd have been unthinkable. I mean, granted, we didn't have him when we played Wigan earlier on in the year at our place, and we give him a game. We ran him close without Mikey, but to flip that, we had Tyrone there bossing things, and we had Mickey Mack in there, albeit for the first 20 before Mickey Mack got injured. But I think Mikey's going to be all right. Again, like you said earlier, hearts in mouths. Then you sat waiting for that post-match interview to see what's happening, and you're constantly checking social media throughout the week, see what's going on. But even if he is sore, I won't be surprised if he has an injection before the game to get him through the game, to be honest with you, because it's something he does not want to miss. Because
who's that, James or Mikey Lewis?
Mikey. He loves these big games, and he loves to prove people wrong, and this is his chance. And I absolutely love what Willie Peters said, not just Mikey, but challenging the English lads. At the brick, you're in front of Sean Wayne. Go give him something to think about, basically. Go show him why you should be in the Ashes come end of the year. So I think we're going to see a great version of Mikey Lewis and Elliot Minchella, because they're going to give him something to think about. Same with Joe Burgess. Tom Davis, Dean Hadley, because there was massive cries for Dino to be called into the England squad. So I think there's going to be a lot of players out there Friday night trying to impress Shaun Wane, and not only that, try and prove a point. So I'm just happy that Mikey's going to be there. But I have felt a sense of man games this week from both clubs, and a lot of fans from both sides of the fence are playing guessing games. Who's in, who's out? Is French playing? Is Mikey playing? You know what I mean? So it's going to be mega.
Yeah, it's going to be mega. Another player who we might have been worried about whether he would feature in this game was, of course, Sam Luckley as well, who went off like Terry Butcher with a bandage around his head. He, of course, made his 200th appearance, 200 career appearance in first grade rugby league. James, how important has Sam Luckley been to this side of the last few years? Because at the moment, he looks absolutely integral to the side.
For me, he is, and I think sometimes the way it's the offloads, and I think just sometimes you see he's going into a tackle, he's got 3 or 4 around him, and suddenly the ball pops out, and there's a huge gap for somebody like Litton to run through. I think for me is crucial, and the fact it's certainly better. Works him coming off the bench. It's interesting that he's been coming on a bit later in a few games recently. So I don't know if that's just a tactical move by Peters. But yeah, for me, he certainly is integral, and sort of a lot of those sort of breaks that you highlighted earlier. A lot of them obviously instigated by what Luckley is able to do through getting his offloads in. I think obviously defensively is up there as well, solid. But yeah, I mean, I have no qualms. He wouldn't be fit for Friday. Tis but a scratch.
Yeah, I say what, Bazza, James did a great job there talking about what Sam Luckley brings on the field. It's so apparent, though, isn't it, that Sam Luckley brings so much off it. You have to look at his pre-game talks that he's been afforded the opportunity to do. Bear in mind, he's not, I don't think, part of the senior leadership group, or people may correct me. Obviously, he's not the captain, he's not the vice captain. But when Sam Luckley talks, bloody hell, people listen, because not only does he talk so forcibly, he actually talks with sense, and he's able to galvanise people. He's so important off the field just as much as he is on it.
He is, mate, and I think that pretty much sums up Sam Luckley's character as an all-round bloke. He's an absolute gentleman, but not only that, he's a leader. Even now, when I see that speech when they're in a huddle at Wembley, it gives me goosebumps. When he said he'd run through walls for this club, for his mates. He's very old school type of person, like with respect, and he'll take a bullet for his mates. So, and that's the sort of leadership thing we need in our squad. People like that, especially when someone's head's down, you need a Sam Luckley next to you to pick you back up and to tell you you're going to be all right, mate. I've got you, And again, it's all these little ingredients of everyone working together, and you would actually, the way Sam comes across, you'd think they'd die for each other, and that in our game, especially our club, is quite rare. It's phenomenal what Sam brings. Again, a lot goes unnoticed, but don't you remember the end of season's awards a couple of years ago when he said on the mic, "There's no arseholes here"? That pretty much sums him up, as a bloke, and that's what he's about. Love him to bits.
Yeah, and he's integral to that. James, you think we're going to play in some mind games here? Because Bevan French, Luke Thompson have been named in the 21-man squad for Wigan, of course. We've not seen them.
Thompson isn't.
Sorry.
He's out.
Oh, he's out. So Bevan French has been named in it. Again, of course, he was named in the 21-man squad last week. He didn't feature. Is it mind games or,
he'll play. He will play. I think when it was announced he's going to be out for a length of time, I looked at how many games. I think they said 7 or 8 weeks. So I counted them down. And I think the last week was the next week's game. And I thought, nah, he'll be playing on the 15th. It's like George Williams at Wembley for Warrington. He was always going to play at Wembley for Warrington, and Bevan French would play at standoff on Friday night for Wigan. Simple as that.
I mean, Bazza, as much as he might play, it's not necessarily something to fear, is it? Because we're not obviously going to see the best of Bevan French just by the fact that he's not the fittest player that he could be.
And that's the thing, what I was going on about earlier about entitled. Just because he's playing, don't mean to say he's going to put in a show-stopping performance. Don't get me wrong, mate. The man's more than capable of doing it. He can turn a game on ahead at any time. But for such a long period out, we saw first and at Wembley how Mark Sneyd pretty much run the show for Warrington. George Williams was barely in that game. So if Bevan French is playing on Friday, I won't be surprised if it's another replica of that. And Bevan French just comes up with the odd play. But again, even if he's not playing, they've got a brilliant player in Jack Farham and who can also turn a game on the head. But Willie Peters, he's preparing for the best version of Wigan. He's preparing for a Wigan of with Bevan French or without Bevan French, because they've got a strike from all over, and it's not the Bevan French show, if that makes sense. Yeah, he can turn a game and he can win you a game, absolutely, and he has done many times for Wigan, but it's not the be-all, end-all, because if we put too much focus on Bevan French, we'll get caught out in other areas, especially with Harry Smith kicking. So, again, for me, I don't get drawn into all the hype of star players.
Yeah, and of course, we know James is not going with the Junior and December show either, because he's missing out with a HIA injury. I mean, what the good thing is about the Robins is that they practice and train to play the opposition, regardless who is in the opposition side. And that's what will stand them in good stead. As good as we know that Wigan have been over a good number of years now, of course, you can't forget they are the Super League champions. They've won countless trophies. At this moment in time, though, I don't think this is the best Wigan side. What's at the back of most Robin supporters' minds, though, is, James, we know that Wigan can come up with a big play at the big times, in the big game, And that's what always. But this is a real opportunity for us to go lay down a marker now. Yeah. And I fully believe, hand on heart, this Robin side is better than this Wigan side. Not only are they better, I just think they want it more as well. I just think there's a real belief in them that will take us over the line on Friday night.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think, if you look at Wigan over the last sort of few seasons, they've always had sort of dip in form around about sort of end of June, July. They sort of start to come out of it in sort of August time. But this year it seems to be more prolonged than it has in previous years. And even I think when they beat Warrington on Friday night, I think a lot of Wigan fans were still saying, we'll play like this against Rovers, we're going to get beat. Someone said we'll put 40 points.
I think Liam Marshall almost said that when his interview at the end of the game. He didn't seem to be absolutely delighted about the performance that they'd set up, and I think he said,
Yeah, so I think again that probably plays a lot into mind games. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about Rovers getting up for this game. We're going to be up for this game as well. But I think if you look at where the teams are, and I think you got to say that probably Rovers will probably the ones that should win. I think the bookies have given Rovers 2-point start, so they're sort of edging toward Wigan. I think for me now with Wigan, it's more of a psychological thing. I think we know we can match them. You look at the grand final. That was it was a piece of Bevan French magic that won that for Wigan. There's no getting away from it. The league game, I think for the first 60 minutes we were the better team, and then we just sort of fell to bits at the last quarter. So I think Friday night is probably going to have best chance for a while to actually beat them, and not just fluke it. Sort of people be able to say we fluked it because somebody was sent off like there was in 2023 in the semi-final, but because we deserved it, because we actually took them on toe to toe and came out on top because we were the better team. And I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic game. But I can see, you know, I think Rovers, for me, if we want to go to that next level, I think we've got to win on Friday. It's overcoming that, again, as I said, that psychological barrier. Last year, remember, we had that psychological barrier about not being able to win outside of Yorkshire. We went to Warrington in the August, about this time last year, beat Warrington, and then just basically bulldozed every game over the Pennines in the league since then. So I think now it has become a psychological thing, but these runs have got to end sometime, and why not on Friday night?
Yeah, Bazza, any concerns about Liam Moore and Jack Smith being part of the match official team?
No, I'd have been more concerned if Jack Smith was in the centre of the pitch, but no, I don't want to be too disrespectful to the rest, but I'm glad we've got a Liam Moore, because let's just say we haven't seen the best version of Rovers against Castleford and Salford, because we've had the likes of Tom Grant and James Vella, and I just feel like them two types of refs don't let the game flow, and we can't seem to play our game. But when we have a Chris Kendall or a Liam Moore, the game is a bit more free-flowing, and we do get the chance to play our own game. So it stands us in good stead, and I don't want to blame no refs, but I am happy that it's Liam Moore, regardless if he's from Wigan or not, you know.
Yeah, I do know. I do think it is a bit of I do think Liam Moore is the best referee in Super League right now. He is, and also you can see. I don't know what you think, James. He seems to have developed a relationship with players. He's got that respect, and he gets decisions right. You know, most times. This thing about him being from Wigan, you know, it is what it is. But there's no way whatsoever you can question his integrity. I don't think. I just think he's a superb referee, and he's the referee that we need in games like this for the game. Let alone the fact, from Robin's perspective, for the game we need him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, he is for me he's the best in the game at the moment. And like Bazza said, I think if it had been Jack Smith with the whistle, I think I'd have been more concerned, particularly after where it was last year. But then I think, you know, I've heard some Wigan fans saying that, you know, they don't want him there because he's from Wigan. It might feel as though he's overcompensating and then favouring the visitors. So yeah, I suppose, you know, it is what it is. I think from the game point of view, it probably more highlights that we just don't really have a deep pool of top officials that we can slot in. You know, if you want to sort of say who else could referee of the sufficient standard to referee the game on Friday night, you'd have to say Chris Kendall is the only one, because I don't think any of the other ones are certainly up there with Liam Moore or Chris Kendall. So yeah, it's Liam Moore. Yeah, I honestly don't have a problem with it. I would be more concerned if it was Jack Smith. But
I mean, Bazza, if Rovers win on Friday, I can't see any other scenario where Rovers don't lift the League Leader Shield, because the gap between them and Wigan and Leigh, let alone the points difference. I mean, Rovers 502 points, Wigan 301. That's almost like another point. You know,
well,
which is another point, isn't
it? Technically, we'd be like 7 points clear. Technically, you know what I mean? It'd be 6 on the board. Then they'd have to reduce the 200 points deficit, which with like 5 games to go, mate, it's not happening. I do reckon if we do manage to do Wigan on Friday, which again, it'll be no easy task, you know. If we do it, I do believe that it is one hand on the League Leader Shield, but we have got a horrid run in after that as well. So I think that's why this game on Friday is so important. Because if we do have any wobbles, you know, Saints are coming into incredible form lately. You've got Leeds chasing, so we've got a tough run of games after Friday. So it'd just be nice to get over the line with this one, get that monkey off the back, stand us in good stead going forward, just in case we hit any bumps along the way in the running. But yeah, I think we should do it. I'm going 1-8 on it, but again, if we don't win it, again, now it's won on Friday. nothing is won on Friday. Yeah, Wigan might have a psychological battle. We might get the piss took out of us a little bit, but it is what it is. We still sat at the top, 2 points clear with a massive goal difference. So it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, James, when you look at the fixtures for all the sides come the end of the season, there's no doubt that Rovers have got the toughest running. Wigan, Leeds, Saints, that lot, Wakefield, Warrington, all barring Warrington, all them sides are vying for a playoff place, a top 4, top 3, top 2 finish. Even Warrington, if you look at their next 3 games that they've got, they could put themselves back into the reckoning based on other results. So that end of the season game could be pivotal. Wigan, they've still got to play Castleford, Catalan, Wakefield, Lee. They've got to play Castleford, Wolves, Saints. You know, really, this game on Friday, if we can put that to bed, it just puts us in such a strong position, James, ahead of the games to come.
Yeah, it does. I think if you look at, like I said, I think we were coming out the ground on Saturday afternoon just thinking, you know, I think we're basically playing playoff football now already. You know, that intensity that we expect from playoffs, we're going to have that in the next, at least in the next sort of three or 4 games. So it's going to stand us in good stead. I think if we win on Friday, then I think we need 2 more wins to guarantee top 2, 3 wins to guarantee league leader shield from the remaining 6, where it is. So yeah, I mean, it'd be a massive step. Yeah, massive step on Friday.
Massive step, of course it is, and there's going to be, they reckon, over 3,000 at least all Kingston Rovers fans there at the Brick Stadium supporting the Robins. So you know, absolutely phenomenal turnout, and fair play to the club for offering the discount coach travel, what they have done, and great gesture at a time when the players really do need the fans behind them. I mean, if we look at the potential lineup, Bazza, of course we know Tyrone May won't be playing. Are you expecting a similar lineup to what we saw against Castleford? Because there's a big question mark over whether 𝗪𝗏𝗏 comes back into the side. We know Mikey Lewis is now back fit. Willie Peters said that. Luckley's coming back into the side. But that's tempered with the fact that we know Mickey McAloram's not playing in the side. So then does that open the door to Leyland or a different scenario in terms of moving other players around? What are you expecting to see in that starting 13, Bazza?
Well, I'm not the coach, but for me, it's pretty much unchanged. The only change I'd make would be to bring Bill Leyland in, and then you've got the question of, does Doro play or does Jack Brown play? You know, he could even put Rowan Milnes in that 18th man just in case something happens, you know, in play. But for me, I think it'd be sensible to stick with what we've had against Cas, because the cohesion that's needed in your span between your halfbacks, that's not built over a week, that's built over quite a long time. So to keep chopping and changing it, it's not going to do good for the routine. With Arthur Morgan, Mikey in the halves, I know they've only done a week together, but I think they should stick with that because they've already sort of learnt from each other in the game they played against Cas. It wasn't polished, far from it, but they've got a rough idea. They've got a rough understanding of each other. Whereas if you bring Rowan Milnes in, yeah, I know Rowan played with Mikey 2 years ago, but Mikey's changed a hell of a lot as a person, as a player in 2 years. So Rowan might not even understand how Mikey plays now. Sometimes I don't even think Mikey knows how he plays. He just does it, doesn't he? But for me, I'd leave it as is, barring Bill Leyland, and then you've got the question mark: is it Aribi Doro or Jack Brown?
Yeah, well, the big one as well is, James, if 𝗪𝗏𝗏 comes into the side, obviously that means all likely is that Whitbread will then drop onto the bench, which is fine, because then that means that obviously Brown and Doro then drop out. But 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗧𝗿𝗂𝗃 in the side, that then involved Brown and Doro and Whitbread. So, but I think I fully expect 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗃 to be in that side. And also adding Rowan Mills into the side doesn't necessarily solve the hooker problem, does it? Because we're playing them with 3 halfbacks. So, look, if you look at the side, if we're talking about square pegs in square holes, we're talking about Bill Leyland coming into that side off the bench, Jez Litton, that starting hooker. And don't forget as well, when we've seen Bill Leyland come into the side, he's not necessarily played big minutes either. And also we've seen Jez Litton then come on and finish the game. So, you know, I think the most minutes Leyland's played this season in the game might be typically 20 to 25 minutes at the most. So, you know, I think Jez Litton, I think Willie Peters is really promoting Jez Litton in front of Wigan, in front of Sean Wayne, to say, this is your opportunity now to state your claim for that hooker role in the Ashes. You put yourself in that shot window. He ain't going to get a bigger stage, is he, James, than right now?
No,
you know,
no. I think
there's probably no bigger stage than this now.
No. And I think the thing about Jez is we know he can play big minutes as well. So the fact that he can come off and then be rested for 20, 25 minutes while Bill Leyland comes on and then comes back on again, I don't think they'll lose anything at all from that. It is going to be interesting to say whether Mills comes in or not, because if then Mills comes in,
I can't see how he.
I did think about that earlier. I had to think about this earlier. And I thought, yeah, he's going to play him because he's probably looking for specialist, especially his half to partner Lewis rather than moving Morgan to halves, etc. And then when you do that, you then disrupt your forwards. You're thinking you've got to probably have Leyland in there anyway, just as a backup. And then you're basically then looking at potentially Whitbread or Luckley or Tanganoa or Martin, or not being in the 17, and you're thinking, well, actually, all those for me are integral. You know, the fact that you could end up not playing Reece Martin, for example, just seems a bit bizarre. So I think he probably will. On reflection, I think he will probably go with Morgan Lewis in halves and keep Broadbent at full back, and just as otherwise, why would he have played him last week against Cass?
Exactly.
And keep back to in centre.
Yeah, and of course, do you know what, Bazza? What Batchelor didn't offer as much in terms of an attacking threat. It solidifies our line in terms of his defensive capabilities. And to be fair, he's more athletic than I think people give him credit for, because he's an absolute athlete. And also he just fits into that centre role so perfectly. So you can imagine he's Willie Peters' absolute dream for that role he plays. Right, let's finish off before Friday's huge game against Wigan with question time, because a number of these questions are around that Wigan game. Bazza, I'll start with you. In your opinion, is it vital to Willie Peters that we overcome the hoodoo of not beating Wigan? And is this the game we say the league leaders is ours if Rovers win?
I think we kind of touched upon that earlier. Is it vital? It's not the end of the world if we don't. Absolutely not. You know, we could lose Friday for some mad reason, meet Wigan again at Old Trafford and do the unthinkable. So we've done the one that matters. It'd be ideal if we did, due to the previous record. But again, look at last year. I think James mentioned it earlier. We couldn't win across Northwest. All of a sudden, Rovers started banging on these quid coaches, massive following across Northwest, and then we was undefeated across Northwest. So, ideally, yeah, we don't really need to get the job done. If we don't, it's not the end of the world, in my opinion. It really isn't. But if we do manage to win Friday, I do reckon we've got at least one hand on the league leaders, and that's honest. That's purely because we've got a really tough running coming in, so anything can happen with injuries or whatnot. So, yeah.
Yeah, James, another question on Facebook. I mean, it follows in the same vein. It says, we can afford 2 losses and still win the league leaders. So, are you confident we can do it? i.e. win the league leaders?
I'm confident, but as I said, I think there's some really tough games coming up. I think if we win Friday night, I think that takes a lot of pressure off us. If we don't win, then that puts a hell of a lot more pressure on us going to Headingley on Thursday night, where basically we've got resurgent Leeds who did a job on us a few weeks ago at Craven Park. So that's going to be an absolute another barnstormer. So there's more pressure on that. And if that doesn't come off, then you got resurgent Saints at Craven Park. So I think these next 3 games are absolutely crucial. But winning on Friday night, I think relieves a bit of that lot. Well, I think relieves a lot of that pressure because it just opens up that space. Whereas if we lose, it's down to 2 points plus the points difference. 2 tough games coming up. We're going to have got an easier few games next coming up, and all of a sudden it's back in the melting pot. And potentially having to go to something like Wakefield, who themselves were wanting to get in the playoffs. They're looking at their, and I think they've got Salford twice and Huddersfield and Castleford, so they've probably got quite an easy run in. You're going to have to go to Wakefield to potentially get a result to get the league leaders, or consolidate your position in that. So I think Friday is crucial.
Definitely. Gary, his question, Gary, of course, was on the Robin Pod last week. His question is very much in the same vein about the League Leaders Shield and whether we can do it. Totally off topic, a little bit, Bazza. Lewis Hales, he says, do you reckon there's an option for Jared Ward-Hargreaves to stay on as part of the coaching staff? Or are we pretty settled there? One of the things, Bazza, that Jared was brought in for wasn't necessarily just his on-pitch performances. It was about the way he conducted himself, the standards that he drove in training, the how he applicated himself. All them actually things that are not necessarily on the field. It seems 1 year doesn't seem a very long time to bring your family over, and could you see a scenario where he's sticking around?
Well, I called it a few months back. It'd be nice if he decided to stay on, but I've heard a little whisper when he was in the the Legends Lounge in the North Stand. He was talking to someone, and by all accounts, he's being offered a role at the Roosters for next year. So I think that one's put to bed pretty quickly. He's going back at the end of the year to Sydney in a coaching capacity.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, as the breaking news there then. So we'll take it gospel that your whispers. Adam Wadforth on Facebook, he says, with McAlorum set to miss the Wigan game, do you reckon we will go with Lewis and Mills and halves and Leland and Jezzy to change at 9? I know Morg played at halves weekend, but I'm not keen personally on too many changes if not necessary. Just on that point about Arthur Morg, James, I thought he did a good job in the halves. He's got, what I love about him is he's got the ability to push off from that foot with that explosive pace. You're not quite sure what he's going to do. He's not necessarily your foil to Lewis, where he's just going to pass the ball on. He seems to have a bit of magic about him. So I like to see him in the halves.
Yeah, I must have. I thought it was fairly quiet on Saturday, but that's was my view on the game. But that's probably more to do with the overall tempo of the game anyway. But he has played there for Catalans, hasn't he? Quite a number of times. Wasn't he there sort of half at the beginning of the season? So, like I said, I think if Peters wasn't going to play him at Wigan in the halves, he wouldn't have played him there on Saturday. And I think playing him there Saturday was just to sort of try and get him and Mikey playing some sort of some routine together. So I think on reflection, I think he will be playing there.
Yeah, and then just another question, Bazza from Pat. He says, personally, I've loved Morg since he's been at the club, but I'm concerned with him replacing Tyrone May, as he's not as good defensively. And that is an important part of Tyrone May's game, isn't it? It's why Willie Peters loves him, how he's backing up his performances in defence. He comes up with 20 to 25 tackles nearly every game. I wonder if when Morg plays there, do we lose that?
I think we lose it a little bit because my opinion, without being biased, is Tyrone is probably the best defending halfback in the league, toughest defending halfback in the league. So you're always going to lose a little something there. But you've got to remember, Artur Morg, he's tough as nails as well. He can take a shot. Yeah, he might get rolled over by a big forward, but so would Mikey. But what you've got to trust in is Artur's going to be on the right. And who's he got on his outside shoulder? Dean Hadley. So we've got plenty of bulk around him to kind of protect him in defence as well. So I'm not worried about that at all. Yeah, it is a big loss with Tyrone, but you're always going to, no matter who you bring in, you're never going to get that level of defence when Tyrone's out.
Yeah, I mean, Castleford game, I've just looked there. He came up with 18 tackles against Castleford.
Not a bad day.
He's in the right, you know, for a player in that position, he's putting himself about. Jules Rodders on Instagram, she says, can we dare to dream of a second trophy? Or do we have too many banana skin games coming up? James, what do you reckon?
We can dream. We're in it. We're top of the league. We're in the position for other teams to sort of overtake us.
Well, ultimately, it's ours to lose, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. It's ours to lose. It's ours to lose.
And as Phil Law said, memories are better than dreams, so we need to stop dreaming and start making memories.
Yeah, and it's really interesting.
I think we spoke earlier about Castleford game being a bit the funny mood on it. I think we have alluded to it, that I think next Friday night is going to be totally different. Absolutely, totally. Yeah, chalk and cheese. It's like I say, there's going to be 18,000, 19,000 people there. The two top teams in Super League, and all the hype that brings, etc. What the prizes on offer? Yeah, it's going to be a totally different game, and I think we showed when we can up the tempo when we need to.
Yeah, and like you guys already mentioned, every few weeks we kept getting challenged with, oh, you've not beat this side, you've not done this, you've not done that. I think Willie Peters is even aware of it. He mentioned it in the press conference. We keep getting challenged about, oh, this side's not done this, and they keep knocking down the skittles. So I expect this to be another skittle. And finally, it's a fantasy question. Bazza, if money and wages were no object, who would you sign for 2026?
That's a tough one. Nathan Cleary would be the obvious one, but I think we need a good impact prop. I want to say it, but I don't want to get no grief, but it'd have to be someone like 𝗂𝗂𝗄𝗃, because as much as I can't stand that lot, he is a player. I don't know.
Sorry, just muted you there, Bazza, because I can't quite. I think there's a bit of interference. James, next question. Dave Johnson, he says, what would you prefer, a patty butty or a Wigan pie?
Patty butty.
Bazza, patty butty or Wigan pie or Herman SASE?
Patty butty, mate, all day long.
And we'll leave it on that.
Can I, before you finish, Johno, can I just give a little shout out to Mike Carter from 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗁 and a lady called Janet Storr, because they very generously donated some merchandise to go into an auction for a little fundraiser we're doing called Action for Alfie, and these two guys put their hand up and donated some merchandise, which honestly I just want to say thank you to them. I think they'll listen to the pod. Alfie's dad is massively grateful, so I just want to say thank you for that.
No, massive, and Mikey Carter does great work, of course, with 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗁𝗁. A lot of people may not recognise him, but he's on the pitch helping out at the club. He does so many stuff with the Heritage Committee, and of course, anyone who's done it in time, possession, whatever, to a great cause like that deserves great praise indeed. So, Bazza, is there another way that people can help out?
Well, you can go on Instagram, on Facebook, or even Google it. It's Action for Alpha, but with a number 4. He's a lovely little boy. He's got muscular dystrophy, It's a terrible disease, life limiting, and part of the Super League Road community, they're just raising money for the little lad, just so he can make some memories, while he can. Matty Timsel was on a couple of weeks ago. He ran a 10K for him, made a nice chunk of cash. We all took him to Wembley for the final. Him and his dad. It was an incredible day. This weekend he was in London, seeing the Lion King, things like that. Just making memories for the boy. So we're doing an end of season dinner in around November time, and there's merch what's been donated from all across UK, and it's all going to get auctioned off. I mean, I've got a ball in, and obviously Janet Stone, Mike Carter's donated some match worn merchandise, which again, incredibly grateful for. But if you do have out, you want to donate, again, we are massively grateful. But even if you just want to donate a couple of quid in the pot, just jump on the Action for Alfie page on Facebook, and if it's a couple of quid, it's a couple of quid. We're grateful for absolutely anything. Anything and everything is absolutely appreciated.
No, great, Bazza, and a couple of quid's better than no quid in it. So if you can get involved, please do. And like Bazza said, huge thanks to everybody who's got involved so far. The Robin Pod from tonight is going to take a short break. It'll be back ready for the derby owing to family holidays. If you're going to the Wigan game on Friday night, make sure you are loud and proud. Over 3,000 Robins are going to be in attendance. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic occasion, and I genuinely do feel like you guys, everyone who's at the game, can roar on the Robins to another fantastic victory. It's coming. I can see the league leaders' shield in sight, but for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Kingston Rovers fight as one for every goal and try. Since '85 we've stood our ground, though trophies passed us by. From Craven Park to Wembley Way, with 𝗲𝗂𝗋𝗄 grip we fight. Now we rise, our heads held high, proudly wearing the red and white.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer 𝗀𝗂𝗋𝗴𝗏𝗁 Rovers Forever members.